Let's start with a question that feels almost impossible to answer. What came before the beginning of time? It's a question that pushes modern physics right to its edge. But what if a fresh way of thinking about it came not from a particle accelerator, but from an ancient map of reality? Today, we're going to explore the pretty surprising parallel between the Big Bang and Buddhist philosophy.
All right, so we're jumping right in at the deep end, the very origin of everything. This is the exact point where our most powerful scientific theories kind of start to get shaky and the biggest mysteries of all begin.
I mean, just take a second and really think about that question. We can trace the history of our universe all the way back 13.8 billion years to one single massive explosion. But what was there a moment before that moment, a second before?
And here's the really wild part. Right now, our best scientific models just hit a brick wall. The laws of physics as we understand them completely break down at that initial point. It leaves a total mystery right at the very start of our cosmic timeline.
So, let's be clear about what we do know. The Big Bang theory is solid. We know the universe started from this unbelievably hot, dense little speck that expanded into everything we see today. But the why, the from where, how did that speck get there in the first place? Yeah, that's where our science goes quiet.
So with science at this, let's say, temporary dead end, where else can we look for some new ideas? Well, let's explore a totally different way of looking at it, an ancient model that comes from Buddhist cosmology. And we're going to approach this not as a competing theory, but as a fascinating tool for thinking about this problem in a completely new way. And I really have to stress this point. We are not treating this as scientific fact, not at all. Think of it as a philosophical lens, a conceptual map that gives us a unique perspective on a problem where our current scientific tools just haven't found an answer, yet.
Okay, so at the very heart of this ancient model is the idea of 31 distinct planes of existence. You can think of them as different levels or dimensions of reality, and each one has its own unique rules and its own kinds of beings.
Now, don't worry, we are not going through all 31 planes, but this just gives you a little taste of the scale we're talking about. You can see our world, the human world, is right there at plane number 5. And below it are other realms, and way, way above are these incredibly abstract states of being. The one at the very top, yeah, I'm not even going to try to pronounce that one. The main takeaway here is just the sheer scope of this map of reality.
So, to make this whole thing a little easier to wrap our heads around, those 31 planes are usually simplified down into 3 main realms, or lokas, and each one represents a fundamentally different way of existing. And this is where it gets really, really interesting. So first, you've got the Kāma Loka, the sensuous world. That's us. Beings with physical bodies, 5 senses, all that good stuff. Then you move up to the Arūpa Loka, the world of pure form. Here, beings are imagined more like conscious particles, almost like living information. And finally, you get to the most abstract one, the Arūpa Loka, the formless world. Existence here is so fundamental, it's often compared to things like quarks or strings in modern physics.
And this chart gives us a cool visual breakdown. You can see that our physical world, the Kāma Loka, is made up of 11 planes. But look at this. The more refined world of pure form, the Arūpa Loka, actually has the most planes, with 16. And then those super abstract, formless states of the Arūpa Loka, they're the rarest of all, making up just the 4 highest planes. So you're probably wondering, how on earth does any of this connect back to the Big Bang? Well, this is where it gets really cool. To see the parallel, we have to flip the script. We have to look at this map not from the bottom up, but from the top down, basically running the story of creation in reverse.
Let's walk through it. Our universe right now, complex, full of galaxies, stars, and physical beings like us, that's the Kāma Loka. Okay, now let's hit rewind. Go back in time to the early universe, which was just a hot soup of particles like protons and neutrons. That's a pretty good analogy for the Arūpa Loka, the world of pure form. Now rewind even further to the very first moments of creation, and you've got the fundamental, formless building blocks of reality, like quarks and strings. That's the Arūpa Loka.
And that brings us right back to our original massive question. If the Arūpa Loka, the formless world, represents the very first flicker of existence, what came before it? What state could possibly precede even the formless?
In this ancient cosmological model, the answer is a concept called Nirvana. But, and this is super important to get, we have to be really specific about what that word means here. It's not a heaven, it's not a state of mind. In this context, it's defined as a state of absolute, pure nothingness, a perfect void. This quote is a bit of a mind-bender, but it gets at just how abstract this idea really is. It's trying to describe a reality that's so fundamental that it exists before we can even use language or symbols to describe it. It's the real that's suspended from, or beyond, any attempt to symbolize it.
So here it is, the proposed cosmic trigger. In this framework, just like in quantum physics, perfect nothingness is seen as inherently unstable. Imagine trying to balance a pencil perfectly on its sharpest point. It just can't stay that way forever. It has to fall. This model suggests the void destabilizes, seeking a more stable, lower energy state. And that collapse, that fall from absolute nothing into something, is the philosophical equivalent of the Big Bang. It's the event that triggers the whole cascade, from the formless to form, and eventually to us.
Okay, so let's pull all of this together. What does this ancient map actually offer us when we're thinking about one of the biggest questions in all of science?
Well, the most powerful takeaway is that it gives us a conceptual placeholder. It provides a philosophical story for what might have come before, in a space where science, for now at least, has a huge void. It's a way of thinking about a beginning from nothing.
And this matters because, well, it reminds us that these profound questions about our existence have been explored in many different ways for thousands of years. It challenges us to think beyond our established models, and it shows that ancient traditions can sometimes arrive at concepts that, believe it or not, echoes some of the most advanced ideas on the frontiers of modern science.
And that's really the thought I want to leave you with. Could these ancient frameworks actually inspire the next generation of scientists to ask new questions, to imagine new possibilities? Maybe the path to understanding the very beginning of everything requires not just looking outward to the cosmos, but also looking inward to some of the oldest maps of consciousness we have. Thanks for exploring this with me.
The Basis, a fiction by Dawson Preethi, where the equations of the universe meet the silence before creation. Journey through the origins of time, mind, and matter, where the 31 planes whisper their truth beyond the Big Bang. Now available on Amazon.